so the inspiration for this show, it started out. I mean, the obvious ones were movies from my childhood. There's that idea going around that millennials are really big into nostalgia, and it's true. I'm not exempt from that. And so thinking about like the Jungle Book and Aristocats and all the Disney animations and even the ones that aren't Disney that are like, but I mean you remember them and and the humor and how fun they are and playful and how they're able to um, make complex emotions more digestible. Um, and I think humor is a really great tool for that. And so I've been trying to encourage that a lot and not um, get caught up in the serious energy of the art world, which is still something to think about. Which is one of the artists that inspired me to get playful was Sean O'Malley or O'Malley, um, and his art is like playful and colorful, but it reads as fine art so well because of his attention to detail and excellent craftsmanship. And so that was one of my key points for this show, was to work on my craftsmanship a little bit, with the woodworking and introducing joinery and stuff like that, which was a lot of fun. And um, to find a process in finishing the wood that I really liked, um, which I really found a good place in like one layer of oil, which brought out the color of the wood, and then a couple layers of buffed out wax, carnauba wax, and that just creates just this real nice, um, dull and natural looking finish in the wood. That's also fancy in a way. Um, and gosh, right, other artists that inspired me, people that were Melissa Porter and her display boxes. I didn't think about it until a couple of weeks ago how they probably influenced me, because her stuff is, it's three dimensional, but it's framed so well. And my art buddy Shannon, of course. Uh, Shannon and I don't know how it works out, but as at True North, we've been next to each other for more than a year, and like another show we had here at Oric, and we were right next to each other, and then we're right next to each other again this year. So it's serendipitous in that way. But her use of color and actual rust in her art, which I didn't know until this past year, and um, is is inspiring and yeah, gosh. Okay, anyways, next. Um, oh, and the other one was Heidi. I've been thinking about Heidi. What's her last name? Almarosa's art. What? Almasara. Thank you. Um, and her work with concretes and the and flowers and plants and stuff, and it's really um simple, and it's like framed in a real nice way. And so I was kind of thinking about that when I was making these pieces, to kind of um, be asymmetrical and to be heavy on one side, and to think of it that way a little bit. And it was really fun to think that way. Um, and process, ooh, that'll be easy. I'll stumble less if we talk about process. Okay. Um, and so the process for my bronze pieces was it's a lot of steps. And like by the time you get to the end of it, um, you kind of forget about the first steps that you took, and so it makes it's nice to see it kind of laid out, so I can kind of like think through it a little bit. But it always starts with a sculpture. Well, no, it starts with sketches, and I brought some sketches, and if you guys want to flip through them, you can. Um, Either I'm sketching animals that I saw, or just making doodles of shapes and stuff like that. I can't really see it from here, but gosh, what is that word? Peridolia. Do you know the word, Shannon? Because it relates to your works too. You were doing clouds, and pareidolia is um, when we see like faces and shapes and people in clouds, and it's and I've been thinking about that a lot post show, um, and it's interesting. When I think about things like that, I like to think about like why do we do that, and why do we come to do that, like through evolution? Like what did it like give us? And Google's answer is so that we didn't eat our babies, which is which is interesting, and I'm not quite satisfied with that answer. And so I'll keep looking, but um, yeah, it's an interesting thing to think about because it's universal. It's like it's in movies even, kids laying in the field and they're looking up at the clouds and they're seeing shapes and they're recognizing it, and it's romanticized, and so it's a really interesting idea to think about, I think, and it relates to these in a way that the goofy animals, and we can, even though they're animals and we're not, well, we're not platypuses and giraffes, but we can see them and we can see their expressions and we can see ourselves in them. Gosh, someone just sent a message saying they saw themselves in the pigeon over there that's leaning over the edge of the and 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 that humor in it. And another lady before I even cast it was talking about how she could relate to it, and she related to it in a totally different way than the other one. I just thought that was so interesting. The first one saw it as like just being done, right? The pigeon's done, no more energy, just done with the day, and it was kind of just drooped over the edge that way. And the more recent lady saw it as like just like being goofy, the way maybe like how a cat rolls on their back and kind of looks at you and process. Jesus Christ, I have have such a hard time focusing, especially talking in front of people. But so it starts with oil-based clay. After the sketches, I create a frame. You can kind of see it underneath here. The sculptures get messed up after you make the molds, but that's okay because the the whole point is to make the mold, and it's a soft clay that I work with, which lets me work quickly and give the clay expression, you know, and uh, and the next step would be to paint rubber on top. Um, I use Smooth On, which is a company that makes a whole bunch of rubbers and stuff like that, and um, there are a couple of ways to go about it where you make multiple part molds, which takes a lot longer, but it makes it easier to take the piece off in the end. This is a single part mold, but you can cut it open to kind of get the piece out. And it's always fun. I encourage you to come up and look at the textures and how like the inside of a piece looks on the outside. It's a kind of a fun thing. Um, and the next step is to create the mother mold, which is the plaster part that's going to hold this thing in its shape. Because if you poured the wax here on its own, even without these cracks, it just wouldn't hold its shape. If you imagine putting like water in a glove, it would just like expand. It wouldn't be the shape of your hand or the glove or anything like that. Um, so these guys just fit together like that, which is always satisfying. Um, and the next step is to pour wax in there. This is the bronze. If you're making bronzes, right, the next step is to pour this microcrystalline wax, which is a hard wax, which they get from oil, I think. I think when they're harvesting oil and they get microcrystalline wax from a certain layer or something. Gosh, I should have done the research before I got here. But so that's the next step, and you chase it because you're going to have seams and you're going to have bubbles like in the hat of the penguin over there. I bring a bunch of these waxes up to Loveland, to Mad Castings, and then they go through the process of putting them on a tree, which means they have a big wax cone and wax cylinders, and they attach a bunch of these guys together, and then they dip it into a silica shell, and then they melt the wax out once the shell is dry, and then they pour in the bronze, and I come up and I grab the bronzes, and they come to me like this with all these sprues on it, and they never seem to put the sprues in places that I want them to, but they put the sprues where they do so that they can guarantee that it gets poured, and they'll cut holes into it, which is also annoying, but they do that so that it can be stable on the tree. This hole right here, if you imagine the the shell, right, it would be too small, and it'd be supporting too much of an object, and so they have to do another hold so that it kind of has a place to grab to. And so I chase it, patina it, and then build these frames from various pieces of wood and concrete, also through the molds. Thought those people clapping, but any, geez, any questions? Yeah.
Did you have a woodworking background?
Oh yeah. In college, it was my focus for sure. Thank you so much.
Little inserts and
Oh
just
yeah,
the
yeah.
craftsmanship that we were talking about earlier. I mean, they're stunning.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I graduated from SAIC in Chicago, and it was just a BFA, so it was like whatever art you want to do, I guess. And my focus was woodworking. And then I cut my fingers off on a table saw and took a break from woodworking for 5. Yeah, they reattached them. Yeah, yeah. But so I took a break for a while, but I've been getting more and more into it, steadily. It's been fun. Yeah. Yeah, I think it started with the humor, right? And then I was like, well, maybe it doesn't have to be birds. It's starting to feel like I'm losing the tether. That it felt safer to be like just representational bird art, right? And now it's like by deciding that I wanted to do bronze, it's not like I could just jump into it. It's a lot of process to learn. And initially, I did have the intent of learning the bronze casting part of it. Um, and you're right, you have to let go a little bit to like someone else do it because it's all art, every step, right? And so um, part of what I really like about bronze is it has all those steps and there's all those opportunities to like change the piece and for like little flaws to make everything unique, and missing out on the bronze pouring is one of them. But I'm right now, I don't think I'm going to try and learn that part. I just introduced welding for this show, which was a lot of fun. um, but the casting is not only daunting, but I don't know if I could compete with the efficiency of a foundry. If I were to do the pouring myself, I don't know if I could price the pieces and as well as I can now, because they're able to pour a lot of things quickly because they're a whole foundry. But if I were to do all the steps, it would be very time consuming.
I was
Yeah.
wondering about that.
Oh yeah.
So that's
Yeah. So that's where I found my. It's not uncommon for bronze artists to just do the sculpture part and let the rest of it be done. Thanks, guys.